Hello everyone. We're starting the stream very soon, so yeah, I'm opening up the stream a little early, like a couple minutes early. I'm actually gonna spend the first like 5 or 10 minutes just having people come into the stream, so we can get started. So today's gonna be really exciting. We're gonna finish up Java finally. We've learned basically all of Java, and we're also going to start using a program called processing, which is really exciting. Processing, to like preview the next lesson, I guess. Processing is just a way for programmers, right, Java programmers, to easily produce like graphical things. So instead of just printing a bunch of text to a console, which is really boring, honestly, seeing just a black and white screen with a bunch of text on it, we can actually draw things to the screen. We can draw images, rectangles, anything that any resource that we want. We can go ahead and draw it to the screen, which is super exciting. Now, Java, regular Java, and I'll mention this in the lesson. Regular Java can use create graphics and stuff, but it's very difficult. It's kind of tedious in general, so yeah, processing deals with a lot of that for us. So yeah, I'll be waiting for people to join the stream for now. So let's just wait a little. I guess I can play some of my public domain music. Okay, if it loads. I got a haircut finally. Okay, so while I'm waiting for people to come into the stream, let's hope I don't have internet problems again, which is it's very likely actually. Yeah. So while I wait for people to come into the stream, we're like halfway through this, more than halfway through the summer already, and I guess I kind of just want to get my aspirations out there. The reason why I do all this, because I feel like that's pretty important for you guys. Not really, actually. It's more important for me. But because I've been, asking myself, why do I do this? And you guys might not know this or notice it, but I really enjoy this a lot. I enjoy at least trying to help you guys learn Java. Enjoy trying to spread my knowledge, because in the end, that's what coding and learning is all about. It's not just being able to do it yourself, it's being able to show how to do it to other people. And so when I made this program, which trust me, it seems really easy, right? You just start a Google Classroom and just share with a bunch of people. It was a lot harder than that, and I encountered a lot of roadblocks along the way, a lot of unnecessary anxiety and suffering, and I ended up with this, right, an online program, and I don't know, where was I even going with this? Yeah, it struggled a lot to make. I struggled a lot to make this program, and I hope it's worth it. Uh, because in the end, yeah, it's all for you guys. I don't know. Maybe it's too deep, man. Am I even live? Would someone type in the chat whether or not I'm live? I can't really tell. Okay, yeah, I am live. Okay, but yeah, that's why where I'm at with this program right now. And I hope next year, cuz I plan on doing this program again next year, maybe with a different language, maybe to improve my old lessons, right? Redo them with more insight. I hope next year I can either get a physical location, I can get maybe a couple more tutors. Since you guys learned this language, you are now capable of you're now capable of teaching next year's students, and so I would give all you guys opportunity to, I don't know, maybe get some hours to help tutor more kids about coding. Thank you, Kirk. Thank you for watching, and thank you for Arc Music for making sure I'm live. So now that most of you are in, let's get started. All right. Okay. Ooh, wait, no, that's a sneak peek. All right. So we're gonna do 2 lessons today. One I find I guess more important than the other, so let's just focus on this one. I should really make cues. Like I should like slam the table or something when I want to edit something out. I don't know. I watched another YouTuber that does a similar idea, and he has like a little bell that he presses every time he wants to return to editing. I don't know. It helps out with editing, and I self edit all these. I I do a lot of the tech work. So yeah, that's why I don't know. Having more volunteers next year would really help out, and so yeah, I guess we will start. Yeah, arrays and array lists, very useful. Yeah, very useful. Okay, so hello everyone, welcome back to day whatever of Java coding. Today we're going to be learning about arrays and array lists, and they're debatably the most useful class of coding. And so, again, what is an array? So arrays are they're basically a list of other variables, usually primitive variables. When I say primitive, I mean one of the basic data types, like integers, characters, floats. These are all the basic data types. We'll talk about classes and how to store multiple classes later on. So arrays, they have that's cool, right? You can store a bunch of these different variables into one variable by creating a list of them. But there is a little like caveat or whatever. There's a little downside, and that these arrays, the moment you make them, they will have a fixed length. When I say a fixed length, I mean they can only store so many things, and you can't increase or decrease the number of things you store in them later. Now that seems really like that seems like a really big downside, but we will learn to get through that and how to handle that. So again, basically you can't change the number of things you put inside of that list. And arrays can only store things of the same data type. You can't store in an array like you can't store in an array a string here and then an integer here and then a character there. It has to be all integers or all strings or all characters. And another thing is another way to imagine an array is if you imagined a variable. A variable is a box, right? You can store the box has a label, right? The thing you call it, right, which is the variable name, and also the data type. That's the other label. It has 2 labels. What you want to put inside of it and what you want to call that box. And if you imagine a variable as a box, you can imagine array as a set of set of connected boxes. Now they all have a shared label, which is what you can put in them, the data type, and they also have a shared name, the variable name or the name of the array. So inside of this array, you can store a bunch of different things, and the size, the number of boxes cannot change. And yeah, we basically use arrays to store a bunch of data. So if you have a list of your grades, right? Your grades, you don't want to store them in one variable each. If you could store them inside of a single array, right? Inside of one list, that would be a lot more useful. So now we're going to hop into our favorite Java IDE and compiler, or basically a text editor, codeva.io. We're going to create a new project. Again, the name of your project doesn't really matter. It just helps you remember what this project is for. We're going to call it Arrays. Let's create this project. And let's call this, what are we going to call our file name? Yeah, we're going to call it grades. I don't know why I keep talking about grades. I'm so sorry. Grades.java, right? So inside of our grades.java class, wow, I committed like a really bad thing. Usually people capitalize the first letter of their class, but it doesn't really matter. It's just consistency, again, one of the 3 coding practices. So how do you make an array? Well, you start out, it's almost identical to making a variable. So what we do is, oh no, what did I do? Okay. What we start out is we say what we want to put inside. We're gonna store a set of integers, right, or your grade. Now we could use floats, and when I say float, I mean a number with a decimal. That way we can have more accurate grade percentage. But let's just stick with something basic right now. And then after you put integer, right, you put 2 square brackets, and that tells your compiler or IDE or text editor, hey, we're gonna make an array of these things. Array of grades. Oh, that's really bad. That's really bad. When I say really bad, I mean I shouldn't have a name of a variable be the same name as my class. So I'm gonna say grade array. Yeah, grade array. Okay. This is going great already. Grade array. Now an array is actually an object. So remember, or array is actually a class. And if you remember what a class is, it's just a way we can store, way we can make complex things. And how do you create an object? We say new. And when we say new, we're saying, hey, make a new version of this array class, which can store a bunch of things, and let's do something with it. So now there's 2 different ways of creating an array. The first way is, hey, I know I want to put 5 things inside of this array, but I don't know what yet. Here's how you do that. You say int, you put the square brackets again, and you say 5. That's saying, hey, I want to store 5 things inside of this array. Now what if we already know what we're going to store inside of this array? What if we already know our grades? Then we'll say int array with the square brackets, but instead of putting something inside, after that you put these curly brackets and you say the numbers that you want: 96, 57, 82, 99, and 89. So, and you end it with another curly brackets and a semicolon. What this says is, hey, I'm making an array that can store integers. Oh, ow. And it's an array of those integers. I'm going to name it grade array, which means I can use it later on. It's because it's an object, I'm creating a new object using it. And I'm saying integer. I'm saying, hey, I want it to store, it's an integer array class, but I want to put inside of it all of these numbers. Now, why don't we have to put 5 here? Oh, what did I do? Okay, why don't we have to put 5 here? It's because when we already say what we want to put inside of it, that already declares the length of our array. That already says, hey, we want this number of things inside of it. We don't have to put the number of things we want inside of it, inside of the square brackets. So, that's how you create an array. Now we're going to learn how to use it, alright? So once you have declared your array, right, either with the length or the initial values, we can use the thing called the index. All right, the index to place values, to use and change the values inside of that array. Now, an important thing about the darn. Okay, sorry, I'm looking for markers just in case I ever want to use this whiteboard, but I can't find them right now. Yeah. An important thing to note about an array is that the index, or the place of that array, there's an order in that array, right? Let's go back to our array. There's an order of items, right? The order matters in this case. And an important thing to note about arrays is that the first term technically has a place or an index of 0. So in counting in code, we actually start by saying 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this is actually super important because we're accustomed as human beings to counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh wow, I miscounted there. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But computers actually start by saying 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that means that means we have to be super careful when we're using indexes or places. Excuse me. Wow. Now, there's an important function that we have to use. And if you remember, classes, like in our grade class, they can have functions, right? We can have a function here, void, blah. We can give it parameters, and we can give it a curly brackets. So objects have functions, right? And a function of the grade array or any array object is the length function. And now the length function is super important. We're gonna create a new integer, array length, and we're gonna give it the value of the length of the grade array. Now how do you do that? Now we already know the length, it's 5, right? But let's say we're creating a new array and we don't know the number of items inside it for some reason. What if we want to change the number of items inside of it later on? And we don't want to change the array length variable every time. Well, there's actually a function inside the array function, or inside of the array class, that gives you the length of that function, or of that array, and it's called .length. Now I can't just put .length, I have to say grade array .length. Oh, it's not a function. It's a variable, it's a property, I forgot. Okay. So again, yeah, classes can have properties or variables, right? They can have integer length, right, equals 0. They can have integer weight equals 0. And to use another class's or another object's variable or property, you say the name of that object which we created called grade array, and then dot length. All right. Now this returns us. It gives us an integer. So now we know the length of that array. Now why is that important? Well, what if we want to loop? Okay, let me. Before I tell you about how to loop through an array, I'm gonna show you how to access the values inside of an array. It's very simple. All you have to do is say grade array, and then square brackets, and inside of the square brackets, you want to say the place or the index of what you're working, of which value you want to work with. So let me create a comment here, so that we can't. It won't actually affect the code. Indexes, right? Or the place. This is 96 is place 0, right? 57 is place 1. 82 is place 2. 99 is place 3. 89 place 4 is place 4. And so the weird thing is in coding, when we create an array, when we say it has a length of 5, the last number in our array actually has a place of 4. So we have to get used to that. We have to get used to going back and forth between the length and the actual last place. So grade array, what if we want to change our 57? Let's say the teacher gave us a retake and we can actually change that grade for that test or whatever. Then we say grade array of 1, right? Because it's place 1, which it's place 1, or index 1, it's usually called an index. We want to change that to 79, alright? It's a very hard subject. We could only get a C on it. That's okay. A C plus at least. We can change it to 79. We can plus equals 79. And if you remember what plus equals does, is it says, hey, I want to add 79 to that variable and put it back inside. I want to change it by 79. We can actually, what if we want to print that number out? We can say system.out.println grade array of 1. Again, square brackets and the index inside of that square brackets, the index or the place of that number or that value. Let's go ahead. Let's print, also we're going to print the length. Let's see if this works. Let's see if Codiva works today. It does. So if you can see that in the corner of the screen, right now I have 57 inside of place 1 and I have 5 inside of length. And for you guys to practice on your own, you can go ahead and pause the video, test around, hopefully get used to the indexes starting at 0 and ending at 1 minus the length. Or the length minus 1, yeah, the length minus 1. And working with the array length in general. And once you come back, we're going to learn how to loop through an array. So what is looping? If you remember what looping is, it's repeating something over and over. Here we changed, if we say grade array of 1 plus equals like 10, let's say the teacher curved all the grades 10 points, right? We don't want to say grade array like that, like this. We don't want to change every single value one by one because that's lazy coding. It takes too long. I forgot 0 here. And so we're going to use a loop. So if you remember the two main types of loops, there's a while loop, and I'll show you how to do it with both loops. And actually, one method is way more efficient than another. So in both methods, the while function, while and for, and the for function. The for function is a simplified while function that's only meant for counting, which is perfect here. All we're doing is counting the index one by one. One by one. While the while loop, it's meant to repeat things for a continuous period. So in both cases, we're going to initialize a counter variable, right? Counter equals 0, right? Now, when you initialize a counter variable, you don't have to name it counter. You can name it anything you want. It's just naming variables smartly in a way that tells you what the variable does. It will help you code. It's, again, consistency, clarity, concisity, if that's a word. Int counter equals 0. While that counter is less than grade array dot length, we're going to do something, right? Let's just say for now system.out.println. Now, what do we want to print out? We want to print out an increasing index, right? We don't want to print out the same index over and over again. We want to print out an index that changes over time. And hey, what's a variable that changes over time while we're repeating this over and over? Our counter variable. So we say here counter and semicolon. There you go. We're accessing index 0 because counter starts at 0. The counter starts at 0, right? And then the counter increases to 1, and then to 2, and then to 3, and then to 4, and it doesn't go to 5. Now, the beauty of this is that we don't have to say array length minus 1. And that's because we're using less than, all right? The less than equality sign. We're saying, hey, yeah, while this counter is less than the length of the array, which the array length is 5, we don't want to, we're going to print this over and over again. We're going to print an increasing counter and the grade array index of that counter. And so the beauty is, hey, it starts at 0, right? It starts at 0, goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, and doesn't go to 5 because 5 is not less than 5. And here you go. It's the beauty of the starting at 0 counter. Because it's using less than, it actually goes through the entire length of the array for us, as long as we start our counter at 0. If that doesn't really make sense, just think about it like just go one by one. We start at counter at 0, increase counter by 1, 2, 3, and 4 until this while loop doesn't make sense anymore, until the inside of it is false. And you'll see that it would have looped through the array, the entire array. Yeah, this confused me at first because, hey, our length goes to 5, right? Our length starts at our length is 5 because we have a 5 an array of size 5, and we're using a counter variable to count up to that number, right? To loop through our array, but our array only has indexes up to 4. So we use less than in order for it not to count 5, but only go from 0 to 4, and that allows us to count through all the indexes. I probably repeated myself like 6 times there. I hope you guys understand that. Oh, and let me show you how to do it with 4. And 4 it's just so beautiful. Check this out. 4, it's even simpler. Now in 4, usually declare a variable name that's super short, so you don't like have a bunch of words in there. So we're gonna set an integer. Let's just pick I. I don't know why, but I seems to be really common counting integer. Or wow, maybe it's because I is like the first letter of integer. All right, whatever. It's super good at it's super good for counting for some reason, or super used for counting. So I is less than grade array dot length, and then increase I by 1. And this is the structure of the 4. Hey, initialize the counter variable, right? Oh, I forgot something on our while loop. Oh, I'm such a bad coder. Okay, one thing I forgot is how do we increase counter? We want to increase it by 1 every time. Otherwise, counter will always be 0. It'll always be less than 5, and our thing will repeat forever. We don't want that. We want it to increase. And here, yeah, okay. How does the 4 structure look? What does the 4 structure look like? It starts. We declare a counter variable, all right, something that we can store the number we're at right now, the current counter we're at right now, and then we start at 0. Then we say, hey, as long as it's less than the array length, we're gonna repeat this thing over and over again. Now, in order to end this loop so it doesn't repeat forever, we get to the next step by increasing I by 1. We increase our counter. How do we increase our counter? And you can also decrease the counter, start from a high number, and say as long as it's greater than something. But we're going to start from the bottom of the array, start at 0, and go to 4, which is less than the array length. I'm sweating. It's really hot today. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I'll edit that little thing out during the thing. Okay, so how do we use the for loop? It's the same thing. We say system.out.println grade array with the index of I, because I is our counter variable in this case. So we shortened what? This is 5 lines of code to 3 lines of code. And when you're dealing with like huge file sizes and huge array sizes, excuse me, this is shortening from 5 lines to 3 lines becomes super important. And guess which one we use more when dealing with arrays? We use the for loop a lot more because it's so beautiful. You say, okay, I shouldn't say it's so beautiful. It's only beautiful for me, alright? And a couple other weirdos like myself. So as long as it's less than array length, right? Our counter variable is less than array length. We're gonna increase I, and then we're gonna print out that whatever's inside of that array of that index. So let's just test this out. Bam! It printed a bunch of numbers. Yeah, it printed the same array twice. It printed, hey, 96, 57, 82, 99, 89, and then it printed it all out again. I'm gonna do something really whack here. Actually, yeah, okay. How about instead of the first okay. Now, just a little sample problem, I guess. We're gonna ditch the while loop, alright? It's lame. We're not gonna use it, right? No, trust me, the while loop it does have its uses, but for arrays, we're gonna use the for loop. Again, my example, what if the teacher curved all of the tests, increased everyone's grade average for every single test by 10, and instead of writing the same line over and over again of, hey, grade array of 1 or grade array of 0 increased by 10, grade array of 1 increased by 10, we're using this for loop, and we can access that every single variable inside of that array by using the for loop. So we say simply grade array at I, and grade array at I, it means, hey, do this for every single number inside that array, starting at 0 and then ending at 4. Plus equals 10. Now did I do something wrong? Oh, no, it's just, it lagged. Alright. Oh boy, my internet, I feel like it's gonna start crashing soon. So let's get rid of all this, because it's clogging up our console, and let's print these numbers out. Oh, why did I run it twice? Okay, so it printed 106. Wow, we did it. We got a score over 100. 106, 67, 92 instead of 82, 109, and 99. So it worked perfectly. It increased all of our numbers by 10 and then printed them all out, one by one. So now we're going to look at array lists. What is an array list? It's super similar to an array, except array lists, instead of storing simple data is like an integer, a string, a character, a float, we can actually store objects. Whoa, it's crazy. So if we create a bunch of animal objects, like in our previous video or the example then, we can actually store them in an array, and we can apply a function to all of them if we wanted to, like increasing some value of theirs. And one more thing about array lists that breaks everyone's mind and is the best part about array lists is that array lists have dynamic length. Now, if you remember what dynamic means, it means it can change, or it changes, right? A dynamic length means, hey, we can actually change the length of the array. In a regular array, we can't change the length, it's fixed. But in array lists, we can change it, and that makes it super useful. Now, there are 3 functions, and we create an array list very similar, except with a little caveat, to regular arrays. We create them in a very similar way, except, the way we add, okay. Sorry, I dazed out for a second then. There. We have 3 different functions that we can use to add objects in, remove objects, and use an object, right? So now, what if we do want to store regular like integers in there, or strings, or very simple pieces of data in there inside of an array list? Why would you do that? Because you want that dynamic length, right? You want a length that can change. There are actually built-in classes to store simple data. There's an integer class, and all the integer class does is it makes integers. So, I'm gonna create a new project, and you guys can follow me. We're gonna call it array, or fun with arrays. All right, we're gonna call it fun with arrays. Then again, the name of the project doesn't really matter. The name of our class or file name is pretty important. We're gonna try this again. Animal tamer, and it remembers it from last time. Animal tamer class. Animal class. We can also use this to review how to use classes and objects. Now, stream viewers, I'm gonna give you guys a little break since it's been half an hour. So, have fun. I don't know, grab some water. I definitely need some water. I haven't drank water in a little while. Go to the bathroom. We'll be right Alright guys, that was enough break for us. I hope you guys got a nice good 10-minute break or whatever. Okay, so let's get back into this. So let's figure out how to use and make array lists. Now I already created a project here. All it is a new project. Or here, let me just delete this project and create it again. Okay. So let's figure out how to use array lists in code. So I'm gonna call this fun with arrays. This project fun with arrays, or array lists, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna use the example of an animal tamer and an animal class one more time. What the? Where's my? Oh, okay. There it is. Okay, and then I'm gonna create an animal class as well. Gonna let that load. Yeah. This can also help us review how to use classes. So all I want in my animal class for my constructor, let's make this a public class and a public constructor so that my animal tamer class can actually use it. Animal, if you remember. Okay, I'm back. Phew. Okay. Stream name. Yeah, you don't want to just say new because then it'll what's the error here? Oh, okay. You don't want to say new just new because that it'll mix it up with keyword. I'm going to say this dot, and remember what this dot is. Okay. I think it's because my computer's heating up a lot and it's like ruining the connectivity or something. I don't know how internet works. Okay. Alright. And so inside of these carets, what we're gonna put is the object or class type or class that we're gonna use. We're gonna put inside a bunch of animals. And that says, hey, what I want to put inside this array list is a bunch of animals. We're gonna call this my list equals a new, because it's an object, right? We're gonna create a new version, array list with type animal, and it's also a constructor. So what is this error? What does that mean? Okay. Alright, before we delve into using animals inside here, let's simplify things up and just say string. And if you remember, a string is actually technically complex or an object, a complex data type or an object. What does this mean? Okay. I know what that means. It means my internet is freaking out and it's not updating the compiler. So before we jump into using a class that we create, let's just use a regular class like strings. So how do we add things to the string? And you see here, hey, we didn't give it a certain length, and we also didn't give it the first initial variables. How does that work? Well, again, a list, right? An array list, it actually starts out with a length of 0, and we can add stuff to it, and that's because it's dynamic. It has a changeable length. Now, sadly, because my internet is being all whack right now, I won't be able to compile this, but you guys are just gonna have to trust me on this. So array list, right, or actually my list, we can actually access its length, just like how we can access a regular array's length. And you actually do use a function, it's called size. When you say size, do I have to import array lists? Oh, I see. Okay. Now the reason I'm getting a bunch of errors is because array lists actually aren't built in. Let's go ahead and import java.util.array list. There you go. Now we can use array lists, and now I can put animal here and animal here. But we're gonna stick with using strings for now because it's just what we're used to. And so yes, if you I forgot that array lists aren't built into the standard Java library, so we have to import it. And luckily, if you downloaded Java or you're using Codiva, you can simply say import java.util.arraylist, and that'll give you access to the arraylist class. So again, let's repeat. What this line does here is it just says it returns the integer, the length of that array. So I can say int list length equals my list.size, and that this returns an integer of the size of your list. Now, why is it size instead of length? This is just the coder's way, or the Java way, of differentiating between a list and a regular array. So I keep avoiding the problem. How do we use array lists? Well, we can add things. We can add things by typing mylist.add, and we can put it whatever we want inside. Since we're using strings, we're gonna put in a string. Luke, that's my name. We're gonna add another thing. Bob. It's another thing, and these are all actually. We can actually figure out a functional way to do it. So for int I is less than 0 is equal to 0, I is less than 5, I plus, we're gonna add my list.add. Now the problem I have is I have to convert an integer to a string. Yeah, we're not gonna worry about that for now. Okay, for now we're just gonna create a list, and I will show you guys how to convert between integers, the class of integers and strings later on in another lesson. But for now, let's just work with regular strings. All right. So how do we get a value from it? How do we get a specific index or such? We say mylist.get. Get 1. When I say get 1, it says, hey, get the place in index 1, and so I can store that inside of a new string. New name equals mylist.get1, and so it gets, hey, I added Luke, which means it's in place 0. I added Bob, which means it's in place 1, or maybe it's like that for you guys. Get the string inside of place 1 and put it inside new name. So we learned get, add, and we can also use remove. Now there's actually 2 ways to do remove. One way is to say, hey, I want to remove Luke. Alright? The other way is to say, hey, I want to remove whatever is inside index 1. Alright? If there is an index 1. And if there isn't, it'll start erroring out. So make sure you can remove something. Excuse me. So yeah, you can, a lot of these things you can either do it by adding in a specific object, right, which is in our case is a string called Luke and Bob. You can get them by typing the index value, and you can remove them by typing in either the object or the string, right, or the index value. And you can actually add you can add objects at certain index values if you want. Gem. And what this does is it takes whatever's in place 1, shifts it to the right, or shifts it to the right in your case, and puts in 1. Yeah, okay, yeah. And it stores whatever you want to put inside of it, 1, at place 1. Okay, yeah, sorry. I kind of rushed over array lists. In the end, it's just it gives you a bunch of different functions that you can use to create a dynamic increasing, gives you an array with a length that is dynamic. So if you have any more questions, there's the documentation. When I say documentation, I mean there's the Java website that tells you how to use array lists and what other functions they have, because there's like 100 different functions you can use.